What would you rather do? Sound design in a different session, sound design before you make music, sound design during you're making music, all of the above? Let me know in the comments what your opinions are, and be sure to like the video. I don't even care if you subscribe. Today, my friends, you and I are going to be talking about just that. A lot of people give advice that you should do sound design in a completely separate session, and there's a lot of merit to that. But today, I actually want to talk about why I want to do it right before. As you know, if you've been keeping up with my live streams on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, how I go from nothing, like complete scratch, to making full arrangements of tunes. Now, full transparency, it took me a long time to get there. And there has to be some matter of being comfortable with my own sound and my own artistry in order for me to start making choices like that. But it's been well worth it. And I actually think that it is a more useful tool to cultivate doing your sound design right before, as opposed to in a separate session. So if you don't know me, my name's Alckemy. Again, I do live streams almost every day of the week, usually in the mornings. But check out my streams if you are having trouble with beat block or if you have any questions, and you can kind of see how everything that I'm going to be talking about today is applied in context. That being said, why would somebody want to do sound design in a separate session? Quickly, to just cover that, sometimes it's good to help divide your tasks up. So as opposed to thinking that, oh, I have to do everything in a single session and figure everything out all at once, you can just be like, I'm just going to spend a day making sounds. And then I'm going to spend the next day trying to put all the sounds together. There's a couple of problems that end up happening with that for me personally. The first one is that I'm usually in a different headspace when I'm designing the day before or on a different time. So when it's time for me to actually make music, I don't even like the stuff that I've made. I'm like, I don't like this anymore. And I don't feel very inspired by what I had made. Or I'm like, I could do something better, you know? Imagine like spending the day designing dubstep sounds, and then when it's time to make music, you're like, I want to make lo-fi. It happens. So that's one thing. The other aspect to that is I oftentimes find myself designing very similar sounds in the same session, to where I get really desensitized to what I'm doing. So as opposed to being like, I'm going to design a full suite of things and be like, here's my kick, snare, bass, melody, chords, progressions, blah, blah, blah. I'm usually just like, I'm going to make better basses today. I'm going to make better snares today. I'm going to make better kicks today. And if you know me, that's pretty much what I spend the majority of my time doing. So if you do sound design in a separate session, make all of the characters of your story, if possible. Don't just make a bunch of variations of one character. Do everything. It becomes a lot easier to use. So why do I do sound design right before? There's a few reasons for that too. The most important thing for me is that I actually use it as a means to start getting into flow state. And if you know about that, one way to get into flow state, or the, I guess, like theory behind it, is making a bunch of mundane tasks or choices, which is how you start a song anyways, right? Is by making choices. But more importantly, you do a bunch of mundane choices for an allotted amount of time to start getting in the habit of creative, I guess, like flow. That's the only way to say that. Now, what's really cool about this is that people do this in a lot of different ways. Some people might write for 2 minutes. They might sit and meditate. They might do these other things. But for me, my sound design has kind of come to a point to where I'm just like, I'm going to make the fundamental aspects of a tune, kick, snare, percussion, and bass, and use that to just start, creating the beat. Now, likewise, within that, a lot of times I find myself letting things or having success with it because I'm designing everything and applying it in the same headspace. So I'm thinking about something that I'm making, and then without my perspective changing, or before it has a chance to change, it goes into that same implementation idea of using it in that same manner. The transparency aspect to that is that there's actually a few skills within what I just said that takes a little bit of time to learn. The second is the technical aspect, or the first thing is the technical aspect, which is designing in the first place, right? Because if you don't know how to design a kick and snare that you're happy with, then that would be the first hurdle that you would run into, which is why it would benefit you to do the other. The second thing is that by forcing yourself to use what you make, and also within that amount of time, not every time, but to me it's actually proven to be more beneficial, because it helps me develop an imagination for what I make on the spot or for what I'm making. And so I have to say, I don't like any of this. But because I don't care about being a great musician, because I'm going to allow myself to make crappy music, I'm going to make the best of what I have and force myself to contextualize whatever sounds I just put into the DAW. And by doing so, it helps you cultivate that imagination, like I talked about before, with your skill set of where you currently are in context, right? I get this question all the time, which is again why I talk about, come to my live streams, come do this, come do that, because rather than make a tutorial about it that is just one explanation, you can come in and revisit what I'm doing, what I'm talking about during a live stream in the making of me making music, regardless of if you like my music or not, right? Because this isn't for me, this is for you. This is how you can take the information and apply it to yourself. But with that, as opposed to the tutorial aspect of that, you can come in and talk to me or talk to my chat, who is freaking awesome, and be like, hey, I'm thinking about this idea, I'm working on this, what do you think about it? I would much more prefer, sorry about the tangent, but I'd much more prefer the discussion aspect of this as opposed to the one tutorial fits all. I think that the tutorials are kind of becoming archaic, if that makes sense. So in light of that, though, by practicing that, you cultivate this idea and this imagination for your own sounds, and that helps you, again, figure out how to contextualize what you're making, even if it's not the best implementation, even if it's not the most, inspiring or the best music that you feel like you can make. The truth of the matter is that you are only as good as you are in the moment, and that is why you have to give yourself permission to make shitty music. And the more that you allow yourself to make shitty music, the more that this workflow approach is actually going to be beneficial to you, because it's not about the output, it's about completing the job. It's about saying, I'm going to make sounds on the spot, and I'm going to use that to cultivate the skill of using what I make, for one, but also in using it to develop the creative flow, and then also seeing it all the way through as a project to where the end result doesn't even matter anymore. Yes, we all want to make the best music that we can, but imagine if you could use this skill to make a really good tune, and that's considered like your worst, right? Because if you make a bunch of stuff that you don't care about and whatever, and you cultivate that, then when you write really good stuff, when you're in your, when you're feeling at your best, then your worst is going to rise up with that. So it's going to take all of your potential and excel that. Whereas if you're only trying to write your best music all the time, you actually end up holding yourself back, which we're getting into a different topic, but it still applies. So with that being said, I would like to, again, make sure that this is an open discussion. There is no right or wrong, and I'm sure that there's, other ways that you all might approach sound design. Honestly, to me, it doesn't matter how much I put into the DAW, I'm always going to be doing sound design within the session itself, because I'm going to want something different, I'm going to want variation, and the more that I could say, I don't have what I need, or I need something else, and I can get into a sound design process and get through it as quickly as possible, the more that I could keep working. So, there's traps to that too, right? Because sometimes people just end up taking too much time on their sound design, and then they're out of the producing workflow. But that's why you got to work quickly. And if you want me to talk about that in a future video, again, let me know in the comments. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Just like the video, or check out the channel memberships, or the newest preset pack that I just put out, Eternum 4. I don't want to toot my own horn, but this is the best preset pack that I've ever made if you like neuro bass. So thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.